All right, how's it going, everyone? I wanted to do a kind of another refactoring live for you all. Someone sent me his project on GitHub. He asked me if I could look through this and kind of give him some feedback and maybe refactor something. It's a pretty small project, to be honest with you all, so I'm not sure like how much I'm going to be able to refactor in this video. But the first thing I like to do is to kind of like get myself familiar with what I'm looking at. So this is the first page that happens on this default route here, and it looks like we have an app and a landing page. And when you click on Start Game, it looks like it asks you some questions. So let's kind of look through here and let's just play around with this. So we have landing page, this has a questions component and this has questions subcomponents. So every question is kind of like, I guess a row, and it asks you different question answers you can click on. So let's just click on some of these because I don't really know what the answers are. Go ahead and click check answers, got a 0. So I don't really know what happens if you oh, it looks like it's random questions too, so you might be hitting an API. In fact, I can go to network and see what happens if I go back. Yeah, so he's hitting an API.php that returns back some questions. So this is the results we get back. So it's a pretty simple app. Again, I just want to like understand like what are the different components, what does this do when you actually click on buttons and stuff. And I probably could just like hack at this because I know what the correct answer is. Correct answer is 24 miles per hour. Correct answer is twins. Correct answer is green. Correct answer is modernism. Go ahead and click check answers. My score is still 0. So I don't know if this code's actually working. So maybe you'll have to fix some bugs too. Let's go over to the code. Just kind of look through it. I like to start with the app or the index. Usually index doesn't have much, just kind of loads in the app. And then app usually doesn't have much. One thing I would say is you don't need to wrap this in fragments, so you could like delete this for now. Fragments are only needed if you have like 2 things that are right next to each other. So you need to have a single top level DOM element when you're building out JSX. Looks like he's also just using plain CSS, so we'll keep that in mind as we kind of look through this project. But yeah, let's go into the landing page. Let's kind of play around with this. Remember when we were looking through the React components DevTools, we had questions and question has like the 4 answers you can pick. So I guess it would make sense to just like look through the first page, the landing page. What can we do here to potentially clean anything up, if anything can be cleaned up? So if you look here, again, the fragment, like you don't need a fragment there. This is a good example of when you need a fragment, so you can put it there. I would personally add ESLint to this project and have it so like there's certain criteria that your code is like kind of automatically formatted for, or you could set up prettier if you wanted to, but I'm not really gonna go too much down that path. So I guess when you click on start game, what happens is it changes the state from start game here or the main menu. I would maybe rename this a little bit to make it a little bit more clear. I would call it like set should show game. Should show game. And then I would probably just this. Oh, this is start quiz. Set should show game 2. So I don't know why he's doing a toggle here. I would honestly just put this to true. Because there's like when you click this, you're starting the quiz, which means you should just show the game. And then if this is true, we're going to go ahead and show the questions. Otherwise, we're going to show this. Now, one thing some people do is they might actually pull this out into another component, because sometimes as this component gets larger and larger, it's hard to like read these ternary statements. So we could try doing that just for the fun of it. And you can keep it on the same page because it's like an internal private component that only this landing page is going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and put like const. What can we name this? We could be like start quiz panel or something. Doesn't really matter. Let's just go ahead and return that. And this is going to take in a start quiz prop. Now, again, the main reason we're doing this is just so like the code is a little bit more manageable. I mean, you might argue that this doesn't really do much, but sometimes it does do a lot. Like it helps you just understand like the different modes that you're displaying. Is it the questions game or is it the actual like start quiz panel? But yeah, not really doing too much as far as wins here. Let's click on start game and let's try to figure out what's going on this questions page. So if you look at the questions page, go ahead and click on this. We get taken to a questions component, and let's kind of read through this real quick. So when this component mounts, it actually fetches data from a backend using fetch. What I've been doing lately, and you don't have to do this, but I kind of like doing it, is I would put, you can either make like a hooks folder, or you can make like a proxies folder, or you can make like an API folder. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I usually just do hooks. Just name it whatever you want to name it, but I try to keep the use effects out of my components now because use effects can just become really like, they're like lower level implementation details. And if you're trying to make your code more declarative and abstract, like you don't care about where your data is coming from or when it actually fetched that data. You just want it to give you data, right? So I'm going to go ahead and cut this whole code out, and I'm going to put a use get quiz or use get questions .js file. Export const use get questions is a function that's just going to call use effect here. And again, like this is like a slow, I don't know if this is really gaining you too much for this small scale project, but as your projects get larger, you don't want to have like all these effects everywhere because it just becomes really crazy. But before you can use this, you have to like think about like the interfaces of like, what is the use get questions actually doing? And what does it return? What does it take in? Like what are the arguments you need to pass it? And what are the things that's going to return to you? And in this case, I guess we just need to get the questions back. And set questions, I don't know if we even need at this point. I mean, we might want it. I'm not sure why set questions is set back to default. I'll have to clear out the page or something, but I'm going to comment that out for now. And you know, actually, let's just go ahead and move that state, and I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to have this return the questions. Go ahead and do this. You might say, oh, why don't you just return set questions here as well? Because what I might want to actually do is I might want to abstract away, like, instead of giving the higher level component like direct access to clearing out this questions array, maybe you want to give it a method called like reset. And reset could simply do const reset is going to do set questions of nothing. Okay. So that's the interface I'm going to go for. I mean, again, I'm just playing around with stuff. Maybe this won't work, but let's look at the use effect. So another thing you can do is you can put all your API requests into a separate folder as well. If you want to kind of keep that kind of isolated and clean. I'll make an API folder here, and I'm going to go ahead and copy out that fetch request. I'm going to put it here called like get questions proxy.js. And you can name this whatever you want. I think proxy is something that a lot of people use. Just you can also call it get question service. It doesn't really matter. One thing I like to do when I'm coding is I like to have my files export the exact same main function. So if I have a file called getQuestionsProxy, I'm 100% certain it has a method in here called getQuestionsProxy. That's just a convention I like to do. But I'm going to go ahead and just return that same thing. And we're going to abstract it away where we don't care about like doing any type of setters here. We just need to kind of use this. So I'm going to go back to the use get questions, and I'm going to go ahead and call this like so. Just go ahead and call it here, I guess. And we're going to auto import that. And this is going to be renamed to questions like this. And you can actually clean this up a little bit and just go here, and that's it. Like the moment this thing returns, it's going to set the questions. And we don't need async await, so like let's just go ahead and clean this up some more as well. All right, simple as that. And again, this is just going to be an on mount, so right when the app loads and mounts the questions component, or actually whoever calls this hook is just going to get this data right off the bat. And again, I don't know if we even need this reset method. I think I was kind of over engineering right here. I don't know if we even need this. So what I would do is, I'll leave it for right now, but let's go back to this use questions proxy, because a lot of things I like to do is like the API that you're hitting, I like to abstract that away as well, because you end up having like a bunch of different methods that hit the same API endpoint. And you could use Axios. I believe there's like an interceptor, or you can create like an Axios base URL. But honestly, I just like to do a base URL here. We could have that set to this. Sometimes I like to just set it to like process.env. Why is it doing that? I don't have my equal sign here. Let's try it again. I'll do process.env. Okay, cool. It just doesn't want me to type process. And we could have this come from like a base or API URL or something like that. But anyway, like, I guess the point I'm trying to get at here is you want to interpolate that in case for some reason you want to run a service locally. Let's say you have a locally running API. Sometimes when you're running in production mode, you need to point to a real API, but when you're running locally and you're doing like mocks and stuff like that, you want to be able to easily point this. If you haven't seen this before in React, the way you set it, this is an environment variable. What you can do is you can do HTTP localhost. Let's just pretend there's a service running like this, and then I can say npm run start. And that's going to host the React application. And because I told it to fall back on this, actually, I think I have this swapped. I need to do this. Use the environment variable or fall back on the hard-coded prod URL. So when I do this quiz, let me just go ahead and show you. It should crash because it's going to actually try to fetch from localhost. Hold on, let me restart. Create React app, set environment variables. I don't know why this isn't working. Maybe create React app has a different way of doing it. Okay, yeah, it looks like to do environment variables with create React app, you have to prefix it. I don't know why they do this. I guess it's a more secure way to do environment variables, but let's just go ahead and export this. This is like what I was trying to kind of show you all. If I export this thing before I run npm run start, when I load the app, hopefully this will demonstrate. Set questions is not defined. Where's set questions? Again, this is a live coding, so I'm going to run into bugs, and you guys are going to watch me struggle a little bit. But that's cool. I mean, that's how you learn, by watching other people. Okay, so now it's hitting localhost 3000. That's what I was kind of trying to show you from the get-go, but obviously Create React app does stuff a little bit different. Next does stuff a little bit different. Vite probably does stuff a little bit different. You got to prefix your environment variables with React app if you want them to show up in your application. And then some people use a .env file. I don't know if Create React app supports .env files. Honestly, it doesn't really matter at this point. But let's go back. So the proxy, this looks a little bit better. I would make this a little bit configurable because right now it's hard coded to only get 4 questions. So I would pass in like number of, I'd pass an amount. How about that? So make this configurable, because you never know if you want to be able to ask more questions than 4. It seems kind of strange to have that hard coded. Category 9, I don't really know what that means. I mean, again, you could like allow the user to pass in a specific category if you wanted to. And type multiple, I don't know what that is. I'm not going to spend time like reading their API and trying to figure out like what that actually is, but I think this is a little bit cleaner. So let's go back to the hook we have here, and that's going to be called, we're going to pass it the amount of 5 instead. And I'm going to keep category as a default. And one thing I would also do as well is default this object to an empty object, because if you don't, if someone tries to call your method and forgets to pass this in, it's going to crash. So I'm going to make sure I pass in like, I'm going to allow this to just default to an empty object here. But anyway, let's just do 5. All right, so anything that's using this use get questions hook should potentially be able to call it, and then we'll get back all the questions. So if I were to console log this, we should get back 5 questions, hopefully. Let's just do that real quick and make sure that we're on the right path. And I probably want to restart my server because it's hard coded to like use that thing we the base URL thing, which we don't care about right now. So let's just go ahead and click start, and it prints out a couple of questions. We got 5 questions here, and let's just look more at like how this code works. So basically, we have some different states to the game. We have if the game is ended, if score is equal to 4. So this is like a magic number, which it's not a good thing to do in your code. Like don't have random numbers because I don't know what this number means. Like this is the, if you got them all right, I believe this is like what they're trying to say here, then show some confetti. So if the game is ended and they got every single question right, show some confetti. But obviously this is just kind of confusing because you're like, okay, there's a random 4 here. So what I would do is let's just up here say const number of questions is equal to 5. And I'm going to go ahead and say amount is equal to number of questions. And we are going to kind of add an additional property here called like amount, and we're going to pass that straight in. Okay, so now like this whole amount is more configurable instead of it being hard coded. And I guess we should pass it here into the use effect so it knows to re-render and refetch if you were to change the amount. But now instead of having 4 hard coded here, like what we're going to do is we're going to use this to basically check if you've got every single question right. And in fact, what I would do instead, I would probably make a constant up here called like const got all questions correct equals, and then I would take this logic and I would put it inside that constant, because now what you're doing is you have like a variable that actually is really descriptive and says exactly when this confetti should show. In fact, I would probably do this as well. Let's do this. That's a little bit cleaner. If the game is ended and you got all the questions right, show some confetti. And one thing I noticed is that there is a game ended down here. So maybe we can kind of combine these. There's no need to have like 2 different game ended or not. But maybe there's a reason they have confetti at the top. So maybe I shouldn't touch that just about yet. So what else should we look at? I like to indent my properties like this. I think it just makes it easier to understand. Even this, I would probably indent a little bit, but I'm going to leave it as is so I don't get too sidetracked. So let's look at this. When you click on a question, remember the question was like displayed in the page as a row with like 4 different answers or 5 different answers or something. When you click on a question, we are doing this, handle score. So let's look at the question real quick and let's look at this code because I think it is a little bit kind of doing some weird stuff. I'm going to save it so it just gets formatted a little bit better. But what I like to do for my components, instead of this saying handle score, I'm going to make this more abstract. I'm going to say like on answer clicked. Okay. And I'm going to call that whenever someone clicks on the handle answer. Yeah, so I think this component is doing a little bit too much. I think the question shouldn't be responsible for keeping track of the score. I think the score should be kept track at a higher state, which it is here. So I would actually instead pass on answer clicked here, and then I'm going to call a function which is going to take in is correct or not. Okay, so question can know if you clicked on the right answer, but yeah, I think that's all I'm going to do. So I'm kind of like changing the interfaces a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and just put a function here called function handle answer clicked. Is this single taken is correct? Let me do this. Okay. So if the answer was correct, we can just set the score. So I'm going to say if is correct. And then I'm going to go ahead and say set score of previous score plus 1. How about that? All right, so let us double check. If you go into question real quick, let's look at this code, because I don't know if what is happening here is actually necessary. Like he's having an effect. So when you click on an answer, he is setting that answer that you clicked on inside a state, and then he's like calling an effect based on that property changing. This, I would recommend don't do this. don't ever have a use effect that's listening for state or when someone changed the answer, because you could just literally call a function that does all of this right off the bat. Like, you don't need an effect. You don't need to watch on variables changing, because it gets really complex really quick when you have these effects doing a bunch of different stuff. So I would recommend that, like, what you need to do is when you click on one of these answers, in fact, I think it's always going to be the first answer is the correct one because of the way he has this kind of set up. So I might need to actually refactor that too. But one thing at a time. So on click, when you click on an answer, so I'm going to say handle answer clicked. Okay. And that's going to be a function. I'll be honest with you, I don't like using the function keyword. I know people like using it because it kind of lets you know if you're dealing with a function or not. But it's just a bunch of extra characters to type, which I just don't like doing. So I'm going to go ahead and do this as a function. And when someone clicked on an answer, we're going to get back the actual answer that they clicked on, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and just like do something like this. Actually, I think this is, let me take a step back and think a little bit. Sometimes I get too far ahead of myself. Honestly, sometimes like when you just look at code and you're like, this, something just seems kind of wrong here. So I'm just going to delete this effect. I just don't think there's anything correct with that. I'm going to delete this, and we're just going to kind of refactor all of this code, to be honest with you. So the question, this is a kind of a smell too. Like the way he has this coded up, every single button, the first button that shows up on the page is always going to be the correct answer. So I think we need to like randomize this. So I'm going to go ahead and say like const questions is equal to, and then I can say question dot, how does he do this? Question incorrect answers, correct answer. Okay, I'm gonna make a new array called answers, and I'm gonna combine the answer, the correct answer one, with dot 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 question dot incorrect answers. All right, so does that make sense? We're basically taking the array and we are just going to put them all in an array, and I want to sort these somehow. Now, I don't remember off the top of my head how to sort these. I think you can just do something like this and just return like math.random, something like that. I don't know if that's the right way to sort it. Honestly, I'd probably bring in Lodash and just sort it that way, but let's see what happens if you do this. Let's go ahead and console log this out real quick, and we are going to go ahead and just, I'm going to comment all this stuff out. So let us make sure this is still working. I'm going to go ahead and click start game, and we should get back some random answers. So southeast, southwest, northwest, northeast. If I do this again, hoping we'll get the same southeast stuff. There might be an easier way to do this. So a body pillow, a Chinese meal. Let's look at the network request real quick. And again, like you might ask, like, what the heck are you actually doing right now, Cody? I want to make sure that the stuff is being sorted properly. And if I look at the correct answer, which is key, and incorrect is sword, pin, and cell phone, I want to make sure that key doesn't show up first in my console log. And it did. So I think what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to bring in Lodash. I know there might be an easier way to do this, but I'm going to bring in Lodash because I've used this in the past and I know it's going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and just install it. And I believe if I go to the Lodash docs, they have one called Shuffle. I think it's called Shuffle. Yeah, so you pass in an array and it basically shuffles them. It randomizes them, okay? So let us just go ahead and do that. So instead of doing my weird like sort stuff, I'm just going to say shuffle like this, and then auto import that from Lodash. There we go. And then delete some of these unused things. All right, so we got all the answers and we just shuffled them, and now we want to kind of like clean up this code a little bit. Don't know why that didn't install. There's something going on with this project. I think it's because I'm using npm in yarn. Like, that's my bad. I probably shouldn't use the package log stuff. I should have done a yarn add Lodash. Yarn add Lodash, like that. Anyway, hopefully that's good. All right, let's get back to this little component here. So we want to kind of loop over every single question. So I'm going to say, or not every single question, every single answer. I'm going to say answers.map. And then for every answer, it looks like we just want to make a button here. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a button. Don't care about onClick yet. And let us just go ahead and delete all this stuff. So the question is how do I know what the correct answer is? Actually, let me take a step back. Let's read through this. So we have the actual like string values of the answers, okay? So we need to print that there. And then this is basically styling it a different color if you got it right or not, I believe. So if you happen to, the answer that you're currently on, if that happens to be the correct answer, which I guess is here, we could simply just do that. Is there an error on this page? Because it's not auto formatting. I don't think we need state either, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. And I'm gonna go ahead and just put an onClicked here. And remember, this is like this takes in a Boolean to know if you got it right or not, and that's it. So I'm gonna say if you happen to got the answer right, like this will be passed true if you click the right one, or be passed false if you didn't. And this thing, I don't need that state anymore. I don't need the console log. So this component looks a little bit cleaner. There's probably some stuff we can do to clean this up with like formatting and stuff, but I think it looks pretty good. Go back to questions real quick. This thing needed a method called handle answer clicked, handle answer clicked. And if you did the correct answer, the score goes up. And then honestly, what we could do is if the score actually, we need to keep track of like how many they've actually answered to. Number answered. That number answered. So does that make sense? We need to make sure we keep track of how many things they actually clicked. And then also keep track of the ones that got right. But what we're going to do is when they click on one of these, I don't know why he has nano ID here. Honestly, like you could just use index for right now instead of nano ID. Or there's probably something in the question itself, such as like, I don't know, question.question you can use, which might be a better key than index, but I don't know why he had nano key. I don't think we need that. Go ahead and delete that. All right, get rid of handle score. We're not using it. Play again. I don't even know where that's coming from. It's down here. So play again. That's where we kind of start the quiz and we set the questions back to null. So we'll think about how we're going to do this. Main menu and play again. Game ended. Your score is this. We'll readdress that in a second. Check score. So that was probably what he was doing to check if the game was ended. I'm going to go ahead and say if the number answered. Yeah, I'm going to do this. If number answered +1. So the weird thing with React State is sometimes like you have to like do some strange stuff like this because this is asynchronous. It's not going to update your state until like the next render. So I'm going to check if this +1 is greater than or equal to number of questions, which we have hard-coded here. Then I'm going to go ahead and end the game. So I'm going to say set game ended is true. And then what does check check score, check answers. I'm not sure what this one does. We'll have to come back for this. I know I deleted check answers, but I don't know why he has a button here. You think you just like click on all the buttons and like that would be it. I'm gonna comment this out for now, and I'm gonna make this. All right, let's go back to the app. We haven't seen the app in a while, so I probably broke the heck out of it. npm run start. Got the development console going. Click start game, and we see all of the things come out. All right, so it is complaining somewhere about the question. So if I go to the question, I think I forgot to put key here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put answer inside that key so we don't get that error anymore. Go ahead and do a hard refresh. So now like these look pretty random. The ones that are correct are kind of highlighted in this yellow. And, and when you click on one, it seems to be sorting everything. So that's kind of weird. Why would that be sorting? So I think the issue is that this shuffle thing is going to rerun every single time this component gets re-rendered, which is not what we want. So we probably want to do a React or use memo on it, honestly. And we could basically ask that question maybe. Let me just try this. All right, cool. So it's not re-rendering at this point, but it's also not working. Well, actually it is working. As you click on these things, your score is actually going up. So there are some bugs still that we have to like kind of work out. So we don't actually want to show if you got it right until you actually clicked on it. So what we could probably do is maybe we do have to bring back some state to know like what did you actually click on. Because right now, like we don't know which one we clicked on. So I'm gonna say const clicked answer. Actually, I'm gonna say selected answer and set selected answer is equal to use state. And right now I'm gonna leave it blank. And I'm gonna go ahead and say if the selected answer, which would be this, is equal to the correct answer, then we're gonna highlight it in this yellow. I'm gonna make it green actually. How about that? And then when you click on this, I'm gonna say handle answer clicked is a function that's gonna set the selected answer. So this is gonna take in an answer. I'm gonna go ahead and call this, and this is going to take in the answer you just clicked. So handle answer clicked. And then also what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and say on answer clicked answer. So now like we know when these things were clicked or not. In fact, I think what we should probably do is like, we need to have some more state to know like if you clicked on it or not. So let's see here. If you selected it correctly, set it to this. Otherwise, I might just do another ternary here. This is going to get pretty ugly. I'm going to say selected answer is equal to answer. One thing you can actually do, I don't know if you know this before, but in your map, you can actually do like a return here. And this can help you kind of like make some little helper variables up here. So I'm gonna say is answer selected equals answer selected answer. So I'm gonna check if we've selected this answer, then we are going to set the color to, I don't know, like something weird. But I guess we don't want to be able to, like, do we want them to be able to change it again? like when you click on the answer, like you just want to make it gray, I guess. So maybe I'm just making this way overly complicated. And I'll come back to it in a second. So if we've selected it, we just want to like make it, how about that? I'll make it a different color gray. Otherwise, I'll do this. So is that actually working? Is the selected answer, set selected answer, answer, handle answer, clicked, answer, answer. All right. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say like selected answer. I want to print out to kind of get some debugging information. And as I'm clicking these, they are changing, so it is working, but I don't know if it's actually like changing the color of it. So let me just make this like something else. There. All right, that's a little bit better. My computer was gonna die, so I had to kind of like unplug it and unplug my phone and plug in my charger. So that's why I'm using my different webcam right now. But anyway, this refactoring is kind of going not as good as I thought it was, because I don't know if there's just more bugs or I just didn't really understand something and I just broke a bunch of stuff. This is probably why you should write tests over your code, because it's very hard to come through and refactor it and not like accidentally break a bunch of stuff. But I think the idea is like you should be able to I think I'm thinking about this all wrong. Like when you click on these answers, like the score should not be incrementing or decrementing. Like this is not good. I think he had it so he wanted like a submit score button, now that I think about it. So let's bring back that check scores. So I'll make a function, call it check scores. And this needs to do something. Probably this is where it needs to loop over all the answers you have selected and to determine if you did them right or not. So sometimes it helps to just like stop and think about what you're doing, because right now I think I'm just going off the deep end of like doing stuff without really knowing what I'm really doing. But I'm guessing when you click check scores, you want to end the game. So set game ended is true. And what we want to do here is like this, we kind of want to do this functionality, but we want to do it like somewhere else. So when you select your answers, maybe what we should do is just keep track of the ones you selected and if you got them right as you selected them or not. So instead of like, we have like a selected answer somewhere. Where's the selected answer? Handle answer clicked. Oh wait, no, this one, questions. So handle answer clicked is going to set the selected answer, and then it calls on answer clicked. So this one gets back true or false based on if you clicked on the correct one. Is that how that works? Handle answer clicked on answer clicked. There's also another reason why you should probably just use TypeScript, because like this thing is supposed to get a true or false, no, depending on like if you clicked on the right answers or not. But what if they submit the score and they haven't clicked on anything, right? So we kind of need to like do something a little bit different. Like we're gonna have to keep track of which ones we've selected. So I'm gonna say like they selected questions. That selected questions. And this is going to be a use state. I'm just going to give it an object. And that object could probably consist of all the keys. So I'm going to say object.keys of the questions. Now I think this could potentially be undefined until it finishes rendering, because I think it's like going to be a delayed. So what am I trying to do here? So let me think. When you click on an actual question, we need to basically keep track of the ones you clicked And then at the very end, we need to go and check which ones you got right and which ones you got wrong. Honestly, this thing tells you right now, like if you clicked on the right one or not. So we can use that to our advantage of basically like when we clicked on the right one, we increment the score. If we clicked on the wrong one, we just decrement the score by 1. And then that numbered answered. This thing is not really important. I don't know why we have that. I think we're doing that to like keep track of when you finish the game, but we don't need that. And we don't need that either. So I'm kind of changing my mind a little bit. When you click on the right answer or not, we're basically going to either increment or decrement your score. And that I don't think is going to work either. Honestly, I don't think that's going to work. So that's the problem with doing stuff live is like sometimes you feel like you have to talk because you want to be able to have people watch your videos and be entertained. But at the same time, it's like it's hard to talk and think critically. But like really what I want to do is like maybe I just need to know if the answer they have selected is correct, which we are doing. But I don't want to increment scores yet. I want to do that at the very end. So I'm going to go ahead and say like, do some type of check scores here. That's it. And I'm going to work my way backwards with some logic. I know I need to like loop through all selected answers and sum up the correct ones. That's it. That's all I need to do. And what we could also maybe do is like we could pass back the answer. So on answer clicked. So pass the answer and then also pass if it was correct or not. So we could just go ahead and say, how do we know if it was correct? If answer is equal to question.correct answer. Okay. I don't know if I'm just overcomplicating this. I might be. So let me know in the comments below if I am overcomplicating this. But I believe like what we have to do is we need to like keep track of which one they selected. So I'm going to pretend like I have some state up here and I'm going to say like set selected, or I'm going to say set answered questions. And that is going to take in the answered questions and then probably do a key of answer is correct. How about that? We don't have that, so I'm gonna go ahead and declare it answered questions, set answer questions equal to use state of an empty object for right now. Now the reason we're doing this is like as you click on answers, we're just setting up a map so we can keep track of which ones you've correctly done. And then I'm gonna finally just loop over all those. Maybe I can use like a reduce or something. So I'm gonna say object of keys of answered questions dot reduce, and then let's get the current counts of stuff. So I'm going to say like is correct. Object dot keys, and this would be the key. Go ahead and start up at 0, and then I'm going to return the answered questions of key. If it's true, then we can return 1 or also return 0 plus ACC. Or ACC plus this. Now, reduce is kind of confusing sometimes. Like sometimes it's hard for me to wrap my head around it. But honestly, like what this is doing is I'm basically looping through all the answers they've selected, getting to see if they've answered true. And that means that like we got it correct. And then I'm just summing up all the corrects. Okay, so hopefully this works. But I'm gonna get the score here and I'm gonna go ahead and say like set score because we need to track that. Set game ended, also true. And I don't know if we want to set the questions to blank yet. Let me just go ahead and delete some of this. Score is 0, main menu. If I click main menu, let's fix this real quick. Go to main menu. I rather just name it like what it's doing. And honestly, what this should do is just say like, the landing page probably has to pass in some type of function to this, or like in-game. So I'm gonna go ahead and say like in-game is gonna be a function called like, okay, let's just do this. Questions in-game. Okay, hopefully that makes more sense. I don't really know if it does, but yeah, did we make this code cleaner or more complex? If I go back, does this take us back? So this is kind of working. Let's just go ahead and click on 1 for everything. Check my answers, and I didn't get any right. I don't know if that's working correctly. Yeah, so I don't know if that's truly working. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and put a debugger here. Sometimes it's good to use a debugger to figure out what the heck you're doing. And every time I click on one of these, I want to make sure that like the code's doing what I think it is. So is correct, is false. And if I were to run through this and then click on a different one of these is bound to be the right one. What year's Declaration of Independence? July 4th. I didn't even read the question. Obviously, it's July 4th. So if I click on this one and go through, what is answer questions going to be set to? So it looks like we're putting a bunch of things on here, which I didn't really think about that. Maybe we're not doing it right. But if I were to go ahead and select some of these other ones, my score is 0. So why is that still printing out? Game ended. That game ended. All right, let's try this again. On average, Americans consume 100 pounds of what a second? What? Americans consume 100 pounds of what per second? Probably cocaine? Like, I don't know. Okay, so for me to like get this correct, I think I don't know if I'm making this overly complex. First of all, my reducer probably doesn't work. Honestly, sometimes it's easier just to use a for loop. You know what? Let me take a step back. So what am I trying to figure out? What I'm trying to figure out is like, are these things working correctly? And if I look at the API and look at like one of these categories, the correct answer should be Clyde for this one. So if I click Clyde and then check my answers, I should get a 1. Okay, I'm not getting a 1, which makes me think that either my reduce function is not doing what it's supposed to do, or there's something else going on. And honestly, this shouldn't pass back answer. I think this should pass back question. I think that's another issue that we're running into. So this one should probably be passing back the question that I clicked, like this. Handle answer. So this should be the question.question. I'm gonna rename this to on question answered. And this takes in the question that they answered and if they got it correct or not. Okay. So this is going to go back to here. And I'll say handle question answered. Hope you guys are super confused already because I'm super confused. Like, So this should make it a little bit easier to like know like what's going on here. As you click through them, it'll tell you if you got that question right or not. And then at the very end, we need to check our score, which honestly, for now, I'm just going to say let score is equal to 0. And then I'm going to go ahead and just say like for let key of object.keys of the answered questions. I think my reduce should work fine, but I'm just going to do this the old-fashioned way for now. And I'm going to say if answered questions of key. Why am I doing this? I can just do this. If key of that is true, then I'm going to say score plus plus, and then I'm going to return the score like this. Okay. It doesn't help that I have score over here and I'm overloading it again with another score. So like for right now, I could say like, I'm just going to call this sum. I'm going to call it answered correct. How about that? So let's try it again. Go ahead, start game. I want to check to see like what is a real answer to one of these. Correct answer is Mike. And let's go ahead and just check my answers. So we got one right. But now I can't go back to the main menu for some reason. Because game ended is not a function. Because it's supposed to be called set game ended. Again, TypeScript what it told me. There's some like reloading stuff going on that I probably need to fix, but for the most part, like, let's just look at this real quick. I will say it's like 12:30, so like my brain's not working too well, so you can always just leave a comment below if you think there's a better way I can do some of this stuff. Government, let's just do 2 and then select a bunch of random ones for the other one. I'm gonna click check answers, and I managed to get 4 correct. Is that correct? Milky Way Galaxy, and what was the last one? Edward, wow, I got lucky. Okay, so I think it's working now. I think as you select stuff, let me make sure if I do this again, it should have restarted everything. Now let's just make sure that it still says score 0. Okay. Now I think because like the component is unmounting, it's getting cleared out, and like this ternary is basically when this thing gets unmounted, it's going to delete all the state that was in that component. So now it's going to reset this back to 0. This is reset to false. Like I think this is fine. And honestly, like I don't even know if I need to do set in game because this thing is just going to go back to the main page. So I think I can kind of do this. And I guess I don't even need start quiz here. Let's go back. Is there a start quiz getting passed in here? I don't know why start quiz is here. I probably broke some of the original functionality of this application, to be honest, but I'm going to double check this works. Don't know if that's working correct. I was hoping I get like a 2, but I guess if you just randomly guess on some of these. Oh, that was weird. So yeah, there's like a little jumping thing going around here. I'm not sure why that was happening. The landing page, where do we actually fetch the where do we do the use? Use get questions, amount, number of questions. So whenever this thing changes, which it never really should, then we should probably, you know, I kind of wonder the fact that we're passing an object, this might change every time. Like I kind of wonder if we actually don't want to do that. I guess it wouldn't matter, right? Because the amount was actually set on this hook. So I don't think that would have made a difference. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just like a slower network request thing going on. Like, I don't know why it's like showing it and then it like flip sometimes. I don't know if you guys saw that. Let me try it again. Anyway. So let's just do a final code walkthrough. I'm going to show you the things I changed, and you can let me know if I made this code even more complex or did not make it more complex. So the landing page, we basically determine if we need to start the quiz or not. So the start quiz panel shows this stuff up here. And then we click in it, it basically starts the quiz. We could have kept this down here, honestly. So I don't know if this was a cleanup by pulling this up at the top. Some people like doing this, some people don't. I think it makes this easier to read. It's more declarative reading it like this. But then having to jump up to the top to see that code makes it a little bit harder to manage, I guess. But and I like to make sure that all my functions are calling like external functions up here, like with good names. So you might find this redundant, but I don't like passing anonymous functions in here to like change state. I feel like it gets kind of crowded. So I like to put functions up here that these things are going to be calling. And that's all we did there. Now, if I look at the questions component, this is where a lot of the changes happened. Some of them I think we did good changes. Some of them I'm not too certain. But for the most part, I mean, the code wasn't working from what I saw when I first did it. So I think we did make some improvements. We didn't really change much here. But when you clicked on one of the answers, we're keeping track of which ones you answered into a map. And then when you click check score, it basically loops through that map with the for loop. It's kind of unfortunate I couldn't get this working with the reduce. I probably just had like a little error that I didn't see. But once you calculated the score by summing it up using a normal map or a normal for loop, we just keep track of the score and then we end the game. And then when you go to main menu, this is going to call a function that's going to cause this entire component to unmount and clean up. And then our questions, I think this is where we did the most cleanup, where we had like, first of all, he wasn't even like randomizing the questions. So the first answer was always the right one. So we randomize that a little bit. We keep track of which one they select. When they click on an answer, we keep track of the one they selected, and then we basically bubble that up to the parent, who can also track it for scoring purposes. And then this is kind of, I don't know if this was a good idea. I mean, honestly, I'd probably take this whole thing out because this is like a component. And we could probably just say like const answer, like this. If you want to pull this out, you can. Sometimes it keeps it cleaner, sometimes it doesn't. Selected answer, what is that? Oh, right. So now like to do this, we have to have all this additional logic that's pulled out. Like we have to have question, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like the trade-off is you can clean up the code here instead of having to do that big map. Well, I guess you'd always have to do a map, but like you'd have to like pass answer. Bear with me while I type this up. My computer's kind of slowing down for some reason. I think question is wanted. What else do I want here? Question, select an answer, handle, answer, clicked. You know, I really wish you could do this in React where like you didn't have to like do all this prop is equal to this. Like it should have been smarter to just like no. But hey. So I guess what I'm trying to show here is you can like delete all this stuff. Potentially. And let me just go ahead and put these all on new lines so it's like easier to manage. And you really need to set up a prettifier or like lint so I don't have to do all this stuff manually. But here's the answer. Oh, that used to be a button. So yeah, I don't need to do this. So I mean, you can do this and that'll clean up like this code with the map. But then you have to like pass all this stuff through. You ever look at a word and like, when you really look at the word, you're like, this word looks weird. Like answer. Did I spell that right? It just looks weird. But yeah, I guess that's kind of cleaner. I mean, make sure we didn't break anything. I'm gonna refresh the page, go back here, click on some stuff, check my answers. We get 1. Although I'm not sure why we only had 4 there. Should have gotten 5. Amount is equal to 4. So why are we fetching 4? Because I thought we changed that, didn't we? Questions, answer. Oh, I'm an idiot. I messed that up. All right, click some more stuff. Yeah, so leave a comment below if you think I cleaned this code up or if I made it just more confusing. I know it took me a while to like understand what was going on and like implement this simple little application, but I think that's the state of like coding in React these days and just coding in general. It's like something kind of basic can get really complex really quick. And like even someone who's been doing this for a while, like I get tripped up on stuff, and depending on the time of the day, like something that seems like it should be super easy is just like it kind of looks like you're looking at a foreign language sometimes, and you're like you don't know what any of this stuff's doing. But anyway, hope you guys like this refactoring. Leave a comment below and join my Discord if you want to ask me questions directly, or just talk to a community of other people trying to learn how to code and struggle with learning React as well. And yeah, give me a thumbs up and a comment, a like and a subscribe and whatever else. Have a good day and happy coding, y'all.